The Big A was rocking over the weekend. That paddock was packed with horses and people for good reason. Two major graded stakes on Saturday's card. And talk about a big lineup here on this edition of the Racing Report. You've made it in time. We're happy about that. Jason Blewitt. And look who's here. Guys made it back from California. Richard Migliore, Andy Serling. How was the flight back?
I tell you, Richie and I just had the same thing to say to each other after the show was over.
What was that?
We can't wait to get back and see Jason.
Your dedication will never be questioned, and I can't blame you.
We missed
Good
you.
reason
What
to come
can we
back.
say?
Well, we're glad you're here, and I mean, all kidding aside, the lineup of races this past weekend, from Queens to Hallandale to Arcadia, top-notch.
No, there were sensational races, and the races delivered. And that's the best thing you can ask for, is to have big races, good horses, and they deliver. And we saw it in a number of spots.
A number of spots, and we were there firsthand witnessing the San Antonio that had so much hype and actually delivered on that hype.
Indeed it did. Let's get to it. The Clash of the Titans, the big two, former 2-year-old champion, a 3-year-old champion, and Horse of the Year from 2015. I'll send it to you guys off the break, and you could talk about that early run with Shared Belief into the first turn.
You know, I think, Richie, this is a very good situation to show how when Shared Belief broke as sharply as he did and as cleanly as he did and put himself right in the race, you knew it was going to be tough to beat him.
Yeah, when you see a horse leave the gate with that kind of purpose, you know they got their game face on. And I like what Mike Smith did. After the two speeds cleared from the outside, Alpha Bird and obviously California Chrome, they went to back it up. Mike said, you know what, I'm on a good horse. I'm going to allow him to go forward, make them go on a little bit, stretch it back out, and put himself in the perfect spot.
Getting your position going forward. My horse Bronzo getting a ridiculous trip in there, and you said we're probably right that he got a little keen with the blinkers. But, you know, there really isn't a lot to talk about. A bit of a cat and mouse game, I think, Richie, and you think that Victor Espinoza maybe should have pushed the button earlier. It may have given him a better chance. I think you'll agree, though. Nobody was beating Shared Belief. He won a big gear down.
And I think he was the best horse in the day, but I think, and we talk about this a lot, you have to play to your horse's strengths. And I think California Chrome's weapon is he runs the turn so well. And it harkened back to Sunday Silence and Easy Goer in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Easy Goer got to his saddle towel, Sunday Silence shifty enough to spurt away from him. I would have liked to have seen Victor Espinoza do that instead of keeping him under this tight rein here. But now when Opportunity goes inside him, it actually helps Mike Smith, because Victor would have packed him out. Now he sees a horse to his inside, he's got to go back towards the inside.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective, and he did that. You know what, though? And I agree with you. He should have taken that opportunity. We even talked about this before the race, and you had talked about it before the race particularly. But I don't know that it matters. Mike was so confident here. For a second, it looked like California Chrome might spurt away.
I thought the race was over for a second at the quarter pole. I really did.
It was over. We just thought the wrong horse was going to win the race. You watch it here. Mike's got a lot of horse.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But the thing about Shared Belief, and I actually had this conversation with Mike Smith in the jockey's room beforehand, he says he just doesn't run the turn as well on his left lead. Like, he has to kind of pedal. He has to ask him to hold his position there. And when he's working hard, maybe that's when you need to get away from him, because when he gets on his right lead, he seems to find another gear.
Do you think that's more of a situation? He has had a lot of foot issues during his career. Do you think maybe that's part of the reason?
It very well could be part of the reason. I think it's a little hard for us to ascertain that or not. I really genuinely believe some horses are left-handed and some horses are right-handed, and he just might not be a horse that's strong on his left lead.
Well, when he straightened away, he certainly showed who the best horse was. And California Chrome ran fine. It's not as though he ran badly in here. Yeah. He just lost a horse who was better than him. And it's nice to get an opportunity to watch these two horses and not have some trip get in the way of one of them running their best races. They ran their best races, and Shared Belief was too much for California Chrome on this day.
Yeah, there were no excuses yesterday. Everybody had a clean trip, and that's all you can ask. I mean, I think that's why, for me, the Breeders' Cup Classic was just so dissatisfying, because you came away with more questions than answers. I think this time we got some answers.
Right. It's very important we run our biggest races and these horses meet up, because they don't meet up often enough that we get a clean race. We saw it, and Shared Belief was the horse.
That was the real beautiful thing, outside of both these horses being two legitimately talented runners and legitimate Grade 1 contenders. The fact that they met in the same race, and they did it on the first Saturday in February, and I really do, looking at the entire handicap scene and landscape, just that these horses stay healthy throughout the year.
No question about it. Hopefully Byron's going to be back. Bob Baffert, talking to him, seems to think that he's going to be back pretty soon. Right. That would be terrific. We tonalist. We look forward to seeing him. But right now, these are the top 2 dogs. And right now, and it's early in the year, Shared Belief is the king.
Well, it is interesting, too, that all of these 3-year-olds coming back at 4, and it was a very talented group of 3-year-olds. It's nice to see them as 4 as they mature. And then we've got a couple of horses like Palace Malice that's coming back, too, so it'll be interesting to see where he fits.
If Palace Malice ever wins another race, I will wear the dunce cap when we do that show on the National Racing Report.
Looking forward to that. Let's get on to Todd Pletcher. Well, all right.
I hope I'm wrong. Right. I love Palace Malice, but he's not winning another race.
I've got major reservations. Apparently, he's training, at least breezing, down in South Carolina. But we'll move on to Todd Pletcher's trio taking attack and running at Lee in the Don Handicap at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, you know, I think this race was won on the first turn by the aggressive ride on the inside by Javier Castellano on Constitution on a big day. He kept Commissioner at bay, and he just kept on running.
He really did, and you could see here. I mean, he's kind of running off a little bit, running out just a little bit, like his tail's on fire. He was very, very aggressive. Javier got him to settle as they hit the backstretch a little bit. Lee looks to me like maybe he's lost a bit of his speed that he had last year.
Well, maybe. This was a pretty fast pace, or maybe Joel thought, I don't want to get in a situation where I'm forcing the pace head-and-head, because think of the situation. If he goes aggressively from the start, he forces Commissioner even more, and then they go even faster, and he got that good position tucked inside. This race got a 113 buyer. The San Diego Handicap got a 106 buyer. Now, I wouldn't want to say that on a fair level playing field, I'd take Shared Belief against any of these horses. But this was a fast race. Lee just was second best today in this race to a horse that ran out of his skin.
Thought he had a good trip and quite simply was outrun. As Bill Mott noted in the post-race quotes, Joel had Lee in the clear for a little over a 3/16 of a mile run, and he just couldn't get by Constitution.
No, I think that was simply the case. He was the second best horse today. Whether or not he has the same speed he used to have, that's a legitimate question. But I think in this race, Joel just didn't want to get caught out pretty wide.
Well, it's a very good point. He showed the ability to run in behind horses last time. Excuse me. But he did have his opportunity. When he got out from behind him, the other horse didn't come back to him. So you've got to give him his due. And another 3-year-old making that jump to 4 that looks awfully good.
No, listen, this is the best race that Constitution ever ran. He had things very much his own way in a lot of his races. This was a dynamite performance. Once again, though, it's not like it doesn't ever happen, but we do see Todd's horses run awfully well down at Gulfstream and not always replicate that form at other racetracks. I hope it's not the case with Constitution, because we can use all the good horses we can get. And if this is an indication of the kind of performances he can put in at different racetracks throughout the year, he's a huge player in the division.
Well, he is 4 for 4 at Gulfstream.
Right.
And then Lee was 3 for 3 at Gulfstream going into this, and one of them had to come out beaten at Gulfstream.
And neither of them ran badly.
No.
I mean, they both brought their A games in this race. And I'll tell you, like, if I'm Bill Mott, obviously you want to win the race, but he's probably not disappointed at all. In fact, he's probably happy with the performance he got because Lee ran his race. Now he's just got to hope that Lee can stay sound.
Well, and Bill Mott's a true horseman. He's not looking for excuses. He said, hey, my horse had 3/16 of a mile to get there, and he didn't. And that's what your best horsemen do, because when you're making excuses, you're not trying to improve your horse. You're just trying to make reasons for that they should have won.
Right, I agree. There's no shame in running well and losing to a horse that ran better. And we saw it with Lee. Yeah. We saw it with California Chrome.
And Constitution becomes just the 3rd horse over the last quarter century to win both the Florida Derby and Don down at Gulfstream Park, joining both Harlan's Holiday, who Todd at least had for the Don win. Ken McPeak had him earlier in his career, and Crypto Clearance back in the late 80s. How about that?
Wow.
And another Grade 1 winner for Tappan as we send it to break. He's standing for a paltry $300,000 this year in the United States, and we've got some turf action coming up down at Gulfstream, so stay with us. Welcome back to the Big A. And look at Equestrius. We've done over $50 million worth of improvements in the building. And I'll tell you, here on Saturday, it had a real, and let's be realistic, it was a Saturday in February, but this place, and you guys weren't here, had a real big race day feel to it.
It was a big race day. We had good races here, but the big races in California, big races in Florida. You've got a lot of racing fans here. You bet the races through simulcast. The race fans came out all across the country.
Yeah, and we had our second in the series of races for 3-year-olds with the Withers, and we had a good toboggan. So a nice card put together. And, you know, this winter's been tough with the weather, so it's nice to have a good Saturday.
Yeah, it felt really good leaving work Saturday. And, of course, we'll have the Withers and toboggan coming up a bit later in the show. We head back down to Gulfstream Park. We head to the turf, and we continue with Todd Pletcher and Javier Castellano. A Grade 1 win on the grass with Mashawish, who's sitting the pocket, the #1 horse.
Well, I'm going to wax poetic about Mashawish, and I'm going to wax poetic about Javier Castellano. Mashawish was keen. He's in behind horses. He pulled for 5/8 of a mile. And usually when horses pull that far, they let go, they don't finish. Well, he still finished. But look at this hole that Javier Castellano finds and guides him through without bothering the horse to his inside. He is just riding as good as anybody in the world right now.
No, absolutely, no doubt about it. A tremendous trip to win it. Imagining who's finishing in the back of the pack of those fifth silks did not get the same kind of trip. He was bottled up in the stretch, and it was a very tough beat for Slumber, because Slumber with John Velasquez was basically 3 wide around the racetrack and lost the nose to him, whereas Mishwash saved all the ground.
Yes.
I mean, he had the traffic, but he eventually got through under the great ride. These horses all ran well. A very bunched finish in this field. I wonder about all these horses going forward when they have that bunched finish.
Yeah, I know. You always seem to, when they're that clumped up, that, maybe it's not that quality. I don't know. I think the first 2 ran really well. They both, the one horse having traffic and pulling for as long as he did, and then Slumber, like you said, being parked wide. And it almost looked like when Slumber spotted Mishawish, he took off again.
No, I agree. I mean, Slumber ran a tremendous race, and I think a lot of it was lost in the fact that you had that trouble with Mishwash and he got through. People didn't realize how well Slumber ran, and Chad Brown's had that horse for 2 races now. He had some trouble in the first race. He ran in this grade 1, and he was almost very smart.
And he's gotten him healthy. Clearly, the proof was in the pudding with that effort Saturday, because he's a horse that did not stick around and was not anywhere near his best, I'd say, through an abbreviated 2014.
I agree. And he's a horse, if he can put it together and keep it together, he could make some noise in a big race going forward. We'll see what Mishwash does, because he got DQ'd in Saratoga, but he's another horse for Todd that's coming to his own at Gulfstream. To be fair, maybe it's just taken Todd a little while for this horse to get his act together. We'll see going forward.
He looks like a horse, though, that likes to run in trouble, too. So, we're going to make a lot of the traffic, but some horses get emboldened with that traffic, and he looks like that kind of horse.
And he has traveled the globe. I was reading the post-race quotes. They mentioned the $6 million Dubai duty-free on that Dubai World Cup undercard for a horse who actually spent last winter running over in Maidan before coming to the States.
He's not going there this year, is he, Mishwash?
Yeah.
He'll get nothing.
All right, we'll see how he does. 5-year-old son of Medaglia d'Oro out of a Thunder Gulch mare as we wrap up the action, at least with the grass racing on the turf. It's all right. They took the red-eye back. He's a little cranky. We'll get on to Todd Pletcher once again and Javier Castellano in the Sewanee River Stakes. And looking at the winner, Rosalind, lost on me yesterday.
2 second, Rosalind.
I mean the winner of this race,
Sandiva.
That's who I mean. This was a dominating performance out of this
She
filly.
really opened up top of the stretch, and they made a little bit of a run at her late in the race, but I agree, Jason. She was well in hand. Another Todd Pletcher horse, though, a European. Maybe it took him a couple races before he got her to get her act together, but she's put her act together down in Florida, her 2nd straight stakes win. She going to the Golden Shaheen or the Golden Sheba or whatever they
No, but Salutos Amigos may be going to the Golden Shaheen.
He probably should after the race he ran.
This was a pretty powerful performance, so the way she circled up around the turn and continued on, and it's interesting to see Todd training for that Al Shakab Racing. It seems like he has a lot of horses for them now.
He has a lot of horses for a lot of guys.
Indeed he does. They have put up some serious cash. They've got that $1 million 3-year-old colt who won first time out. Yes, who got a
102 buyer.
102 buyer, and they have they put up some serious cash, and they've got a good filly here on the turf, and obviously they are the winning owners of the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap in Mishawish, but a dominating effort out of Sandiva, and a good effort too. I mentioned her incorrectly, but Rosalind did run well, finishing 2nd.
No, I'm glad you brought her up, because she's another horse she had been purchased privately. And Michael Dubb again. Michael Dubb had bought Slumber, and he bought this horse as well. And she is a talented horse. She hadn't run since Keeneland in October, and I think she'd had a break before that. She's a nice horse, and we'll see what she does going forward.
Yep. All right, back to the main track at Gulfstream Park. Out of the chute, in fact, we'll pick the Fred W. Hooper Stakes up in progress around the 3/8 pole or so, and this was just an old-fashioned stretch drive. Heck of an effort from the runner-up and the winner, Valid.
I agree. Now, this, I saw this race, and I saw the Constitution effort, and both Lee and Constitution saved ground the whole way, and you saw the inside horses do well, and the speed here. It made me feel like Gulfstream may have been kind of inside-y, but look at some of the races yesterday. I don't think you had a huge bias, but this race had its own bias.
Yeah, no, it absolutely did. And Valid has shown he likes a fight. He likes when he's engaged. If he's head and head, he's the guy that's coming out of the alley with the spoils, isn't he?
No, he's a nice horse, Valid. And this came up a pretty fast race. I think it got a 106 buyer. And Grand Shores...
107, actually.
The second finisher, that's one of those horses, those Stanley Gold horses for jacks or better. It's nice to see them do well. Confrontation, it was a very good race riding by John Velasquez, who finished 3rd in the favorite race day. He was keeping Confrontation inside of him, and Raj had to wait in the second and try to angle out. But when he angled out, he really didn't have any horse.
Yeah, and you know, that's what you're supposed to race right, but then when you don't catch the 2 in front of you, you wonder, maybe if I just gone on a little more. It's easy to say after the fact. And we've seen Edgar Zayas on Grand Shores. We've seen him on a lot of long shots hitting the board in these stakes.
That guy can ride. I mean, we've seen him give nothing but good rides.
All right, we'll see what he does once the Gulfstream meet ends going forward. And Todd Pletcher nearly got the money in the Fred Hooper, was third there with the beaten favorite Race Day, who just ran out of real estate on the outside. But fear not, we've got another Todd Pletcher Stakes win coming up right now as we come home here to the Big A, and we look at 17 Kentucky Derby points on the line in Saturday's 135th Withers. The bad stumble from the 2 far from over.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was watching the race at Santa Anita live, and I said, well, that's one horse that has no chance in here. Before we talk about him, and obviously he's the story and ran a tremendous race in winning here, what did you think of El Kabir? Did you think that he was a little unaggressive early, and then he kind of forced the hand?
No, I think he was trying to get him to settle just like he did in the Jerome, and I've often said this, a horse stretching out to 2 turns the first time that they don't really want to do it is the first time's their best time.
Well, it was his second time, though, but I hear you because he won at Churchill Downs.
Yeah,
at two,
right, it's true.
turns.
But I think he got keener with him, and he couldn't really hold him off the pace. And then when he gave in, now the pace sped up.
I also think, in all fairness, this was just a much better field. That field last time wasn't that good. The winner got a 96 buyer,
yeah, race
and
came
he
up
stumbled
fast.
at the start. And El Kabir didn't really run much worse than he ran last time. I think he just lost a horse that's better than him.
Yeah, I mean, I question El Kabir's affinity for going distances anyway. I think he's a little bit distance limited. And if he doesn't go after the horse in the lead, maybe he never gets by him.
I agree with you. I think CC did what he had to do. I wondered if he could have been a little more aggressive to start, but maybe he was trying to do, as you said, what he did last time. The problem was, I think they were overconfident because they just didn't realize how much better this field potentially was than the one last time.
And he was bet like that. He opened up 1-5, was 1-5 through most of the wagering, drifted up to 1-2, and he's having trouble even getting around Classy Class, who ran pretty big considering this was his first start since the Remsen, and even missed the Jerome with the little issue in January.
I agree, and he was wide against the track of the Remsen. But here's the winner. A great ride by Manny Franco. Man, a horse stumbles like that at the start, and as we talk about it, he does everything right afterwards.
Yeah, he didn't panic. He let the horse find his stride, settle, save every inch of ground. You've already been dealt a bad hand, and he played it. And now we're going to see. You can see he's not standing very square. He's kind of off center. His hind legs are a little bit cocked to the inside, and he splays at the break.
Yeah.
It's amazing that he was able to catch himself from really going to his head.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. He didn't lose that much ground at the start right away. It only cost him a couple lengths, but I think it took him out of his game, and mentally he dropped back after that. But that's when Manny did his best work, getting the horse to settle down so he could make that big run at the end.
I think what happened then when he got in that position, the kickback, because you see him climbing into the first turn, he really backed up from the dirt being thrown back in his face. And when he finally settled and stopped climbing from it, he found his stride. You could see at the 3/8 pole, he's going to run over top of them.
This was a terrific performance. This is a pretty exciting performance. We're about to see some very exciting performances in California. But I'll tell you something. This horse, he's 2 for 2. Suddenly, Todd has a horse who's on the trail that we didn't know about.
Yes, and the good news, I texted Byron Hughes, who's Todd's main New York assistant. I texted him right before we started taping the show Sunday morning, and he said that the winner of the Withers came out in good shape, and he looks pretty good. And also Lord Commander, who broke his maiden in the race prior. He ran fast on a Giant's Causeway and was speedy and very game and beat a very deep 3-year-old maiden race. He came out of his race in good shape.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll be looking at a race like the Bayshore with him. I mean, I don't think you want to get too overeager with him. But
well, before we get on to our next race, I was going to ask you guys, El Kabir, he's got 25 Derby points now. Do you point to the Gotham? Do you say, well, he lost here on Saturday, let's point to a race like the Bayshore? Let's start with you.
They're probably going to point to Gotham. I can't blame him. It's not like he's run badly. And, you know, who knows where American Pharaoh, how he's going to run, if he's going to get back. So I think that the Zayas have to do that. But ultimately, I just hope if he proves going further that, like you and I believe, he's not going to get better with distance, they turn him back, because this horse is a very, very good horse.
He's a very good horse. I can only speak for what I would do. If he was mine, I'd be looking to turn him back right now. I wouldn't want to dull his natural speed by continually running him along.
We stay with the 3-year-olds, and best of luck to Steve Marshall, Black Rock Thoroughbreds. He's been unlucky at times, a minor share, and I Want Revenge. Had violence, owned violence. That horse got hurt a few winters back, and this was about as good a 3-year-old prep race for the Derby as I can remember.
I was down in the winner's circle watching this race in Santa Anita. Richie was right near me, and I got to tell you, I mean, this was breathtaking. This was an amazing duel, and as Bob Baffert said to us after the race, I felt like the New England Patriots in mid-stretch of this race. Well, he snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat.
Well, Gary Stevens took a run at him and wanted to take his breath away. And he got a length on him.
I mean, it was over this race.
It's over at that point. A horse is down on your inside. You basically pulled the rug on him, and he fights back. You got to give Dortmund so much kudos for having that kind of courage.
And I don't think it's a case of firing line hanging, because this race got a 103 buyer. They came home in 6 4/5 seconds for the last 16s. They weren't collapsing out there. Dortmund came back and got them. These are two very good horses. Now, it's interesting because firing line looked like the only speed on paper.
Yeah.
But instead, Dortmund was aggressive in here, and firing line chose to rate. You and I have a similar opinion, though, about Dortmund going forward, whether we're right or wrong.
I really don't believe these horses won any part of a mile and a quarter, either one of them, Dortmund or firing line. And you could see the way they were training firing line that you had to anticipate they were going to try to rate him off the pace. They backed his works up, slowed him down a lot. Now, it's interesting that Dortmund's beaten firing line twice now by a head. One time being in front of him early, the other time, and then battling back, and the other time coming from behind him. Maybe he's just a little better horse than Firing Line, obviously.
If he's better than him, he's just a little bit better, as you said. And I think one of the things that we're hoping with Dortmund, it'll be interesting to see going forward, if they get him to relax. Can he get in a race where there's more pace? Not just the Kentucky Derby where there's always more pace, but a race where they can get him to relax, because I just don't know if he's truly a speed type.
I don't think he liked running the way they rode him yesterday. They were aggressive and it worked out, but I really think that he'd be better settling, getting in a better rhythm.
Regardless of the mile and a quarter, his bandwagon has grown even exponentially from where it was. He closed at 9-1 in the first pool, was the shortest price single entity in that Kentucky Derby future wager, and we'll see what Dortmund can do down the road.
It's pretty impressive because he's actually come back with 2 stakes wins since then, and his odds are higher than 9-1. So.
That's pretty funny. Go figure. Let's move on. Kaleem Shah's got a good one, but what happened Super Bowl Sunday, February 1st? We can't leave out the San Vicente with last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, Texas Red, second to last down on the inside.
This race kind of collapsed, and I think that worked in the favor of Texas Red. One thing, he's a horse that's going to be better with more distance. I think trying to rally inside between horses mitigated his move a little bit. I didn't think it was a disappointing loss, Richie.
I don't think so either. I thought it was actually a good prep. It almost appeared to me that Kent DeZormo was just using it to school him even more for what he's going to face coming. It'd be nice to win the San Vicente, but how about winning the Kentucky Derby for your brother?
No, this is a horse that's a major Triple Crown contender out there. Not just because of the Breeders' Cup, but he's a horse that's not going to have a problem with the distance. And he showed in this race he can stay a little closer. And in the Derby, that's not going to be a problem. Traffic could be a problem, but getting some pace won't be a problem. Can we give a little love to Lord Nelson, who bounced back with a win here for Bob Baffert?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he ran a terrific race, and he was wide, but, he looks like one of those horses that's kind of a bit of a big lumbering kind of horse that you don't want to stop and start, so maybe being outside was a benefit, even though he lost ground.
All right, we still have our Salute Those Amigos performance of the weekend, perhaps coming up. A 108 buyer. He was terrific, cutting down Dad's Caps in Saturday's toboggan. A couple more races on the inner track when we come back. 2 stakes remain on the inner track, but let's get you out to Oaklawn Park here on the National Racing Report. It's the Mig, Andy, Jason. We are in the home stretch, coming down to sort of the, the black and white swirls around the inside rail nearing the finish line, because we've only got 3 stretch runs remaining, and we get on to Saturday's King Cotton Stakes out at Oaklawn Park. Ivan fallen over a lot. Texas bred, picked up about a year ago, 11 months ago, in a dated 25 claimer for $25,000. Well, he gets his second big win of the Oaklawn Park meet. He's a running machine, this horse.
You talked about it, Richie. He showed the speed, he let them go, and he came out and attacked them and ran a second straight huge figure.
Yeah, I mean, he's a nice horse. He went wire to wire his previous start. This time he's in front. He allowed a couple horses to pass him, drop over. He sat in the pocket. The kickback didn't bother him. Angled out, and it was over.
Yeah, no, this is a nice performance. You love to see these horses do well down there, and obviously they point towards the Count Fleet, the biggest sprint race they have at Oaklawn, but you love to see them move forward. And listen, last year, horse who won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. You wouldn't have thought,
Right,
he came from nowhere. So these horses, good horses, as you like to say, Richie, can come from anywhere.
And that's the beautiful thing about this gelding by Valid Expectations. That is Calvin Burrell up for trainer Tom Howard with the horse who's 5 for 6 off the claim for those current connections. Let's get to Salute Those Amigos, shall we, in the toboggan. This was the first of the 2 graded stakes on Saturday's card, and he electrified Aqueduct with just a run from the back of the pack, short field. He's got no position, and your main rival in Dad's Caps with the blinkers on has got the race completely in his lap.
Yeah, you know, it's funny with Dad's Caps. He lost these races last year when Candyman E kept running him down at the end. He just kept finding problems getting 6. And then, of course, he got the slow pace and wire in the 7 in the Carter. He really took advantage of the slow first quarter, and he blew out that second quarter, and he just still couldn't beat him.
Yeah, and I like that. Jose Ortiz played to the horse's strength, used his speed, put separation, and basically had the race won. The best horse won. Salute Those Amigos in raging form. I have one thought about Dad's Caps. I mean, you watch when Jose Ortiz hits him, he just kind of flags his tail just a tiny bit. It's almost imperceptible. But I think if I rode him, I wouldn't hit him. I think he's giving you your best, and you almost slow him down, a horse like that, when you get after him.
All right, that could be the case. Welpe was picked off by his brother in deep stretch, and this was a familiar sight on Saturday at Aqueduct for jockey Irod Ortiz Jr., who won 5 races at the Big A, at least the 3rd time in his career that Irod has won 5 races in one card at Aqueduct, and a young 22-year-old jockey at the top of his game.
No doubt about it.
All right, one-away buyer for Salute Those
Amigos. A lot
Amigos.
of good things ahead, too, right?
Yes, absolutely,
So
including the General George for Salute Those Amigos. And if that goes well, he'll be over in Dubai in the Golden Shaheen. But let's wrap it up with the Godolphin Royal Blue and Friday's rescheduled Ladies Divided Attention White Cap running by Belle Gallanty, who's not the same Belle and Gallanty of 2014.
No, she ran a little better than last time, but she still wasn't good enough. Last time this entry ran together, I thought Divided Attention couldn't lose, and I almost got lucky and won with Penwith. Today they came back, and this is the Divided Attention I wanted to see in the other race. They hadn't even entered her the first time they scheduled this race. They entered her the second time, and they were right.
Yeah, they certainly were right, and Robbie Davis contributed a great ride. Oh, did I say Robbie Davis? It was Dylan Davis, but it looked exactly like his father finishing.
Well, he looked good out there, and Dylan's having a decent winner out here. I think Dylan's got a good career ahead.
His first ever New York Stakes win aboard Divided Attention in Friday's Ladies. And going back through the stakes histories, Robbie Davis did win this race a few times, keeping it all in the family. Maggie had a terrific post-race interview with Dylan on Friday's Aqueduct Insider, which is up on YouTube. And any closing thoughts, guys, as we wrap up the show?
You rode in the first or second Ladies?
No, actually it was the 3rd, the 100 and,
at Morris Park,
137 years ago. Yeah, your first year in the saddle.
The downhill course at Morris Park in the Bronx.
Yeah, it was over in the Bronx.
Turn of the century there in the 1800s. We are out of time. We thank you for tuning in. Glad the boys made it back from the West Coast, and we'll see you next time right here on MSG Plus.